Whether you're new to FinOps and FinOps enthusiast, student, or seasoned professional, this video will provide you with the knowledge and inspiration to embark on your FinOps certification journey. So get ready to take control of your destiny and join me on this exciting adventure. Okay, so that was the hook, I think is what they call it. Still need to work on those a bit. Getting into the actual material, this is number 2 of a 5-part series where I'm going to get you prepped for the FinOps certification exam. Today I'm going to talk about the FinOps phases. So this is inform, optimize, and operate. To give you an overview of how these work, it's an iterative phases. So one bleeds into the next, bleeds into the next. So it's a constant perpetual cycle. A company can be at different phases of this cycle for different business units, different teams, different applications. So it's not everyone needs to move from inform to optimize at the same time. It's as you reach that level of maturity that you get there. So starting with inform. So inform is, as the name suggests, getting started and giving people visibility of what they're spending on the cloud. So it breaks down that one single big cloud bill that you get, and it's splitting it into the relevant business units and departments to allow them get a visibility of what they're spending in the cloud. So this would involve activities such as tagging would be a big thing. So it's some metadata attached to an account or resource that can be tied back to an area within the business. And this helps with that allocation piece. So allocation is, you'll hear of phrases like chargeback and showback. So showback is where you show people their split of the cloud, and chargeback is where the accountants actually make a journal entry to push that portion of the cost to that business. This inform phase is really important as well because it helps with benchmarking. So you can compare different departments to each other to see who's spending what activities are they doing that are more effective, and you can kind of get a discussion going about getting a best in breed across different departments. You can also start budgeting and forecasting at this stage, and the more helping you to explain any variances that people might see in their bill month to month, week to week, day to day. So if there's spikes, if they're switching off at the weekend, for example, you'll start to see that. You can have discussions around it. The inform phase is important to be accurate and timely. So as we said previously with the cloud, if it's a week or a month or 3 months old, it's irrelevant. You need to be as timely, up to date as you possibly can be. So all this is kind of mentioned to inform you of what the kind of questions would be around something like this in the ask. What is the inform phase? Like, what are some of the characteristics of the inform phase? Might be an example question. Next, we've got optimize. So there are 2 levers, but if you think of anything that you use, there's 2 ways to optimize it. You can either get it cheaper or use less of it. And that's exactly what this is. There's rate optimization is where you use instruments such as savings plans, reserved instances, committed use discounts, and GCP to reduce your on-demand cost. And we'll go into those in a lot more detail when we go into the actual practical capabilities of FinOps. But for the purpose of the exam, you just need to know what these instruments are and how they work to reduce your rate that you pay. Then there's usage optimization. So if we use less, we pay less. So if you have idle VMs, which are virtual machines running, switch those off. If you're not using some of your development and test environments at the weekend, switch those off. Are you using too big a box? Reduce it down. It's called right sizing. So those are some examples of activities that are used in the usage optimization piece. Then we have operate. So the inform, telling people what they're doing, optimize, reducing what it costs, are very tactical things, like you're pushing a button. But to really make a change, operate is kind of capturing hearts and minds. So you're trying to push knowledge and accountability into the organization so that engineers and people and architects at the edge, when they're building an application, they're thinking about this sort of stuff and building that culture of accountability and collaboration. And that will continue to evolve as you go through the cycle, and as the business needs and the business values change, you're constantly looking at the lens of the speed, quality, and cost trade-off triangle, which falls in the operation. That's where you have that discussion and say, well, we can do it faster, but it'll cost more. But that's having that discussion piece, which is essential for FinOps. So this is the phases piece that would be in the exam. Next, I'm going to talk about maturity and FinOps maturity. You'll hear a lot about crawl, walk, run. I've never been on a FinOps call where it hasn't been mentioned, so look out for it. But what is the maturity model? What it does is it says how far in a journey you are for the different capabilities. And to break that down, then what is the capability is the actual things that you do when you're doing FinOps. But don't I hear you ask? They're talking about these domains. What are the domains? And the domains sit above the capability. So that's like a group of capabilities is a domain. For example, you might have the cloud rate optimization one up here is a domain. But underneath that, you might have how FinOps interacts with sustainability, managing your commitment mix, or looking at the show back to show what optimization different business units are doing to benchmark and drive improvements. So all you need to know is maturity is how good or how long you've been doing something for, how long you've been doing a capability for, and a capability sits within a domain. So domains are groupings, which I have here, and there's 6 of them. And then the capabilities sit within the domains. There's 23 of those. And a lot of the capabilities might be in multiple domains. So you'll see them around. When you look at the list, you think, geez, that's a lot of capabilities to get familiar with for the exam. But when you actually look, a lot of them are duplicate. They're just applied because they apply to different domains within the framework. So crawl, walk, run. What's it all about? Crawl is the first phase, like a child, and it begins with they've broken it down really in really good way to understand it. Is around the allocation of spend, the commitment mix, which is reducing your on-demand spend, and your forecast accuracy. So they're like, if you did nothing else in FinOps, those would be 3 key things that you might be measured on. So at the crawl phase, you're looking at being able to allocate 50% of your spend. So you get your cloud bill and you can accurately push 50% of that to the relevant business units. And I know you're thinking 50%, that's not a lot. But there are a lot of costs within your cloud bill that might be shared. So stuff like networking, it just comes in as one chunk, and you have to think of an allocation methodology. Other elements might come through. There's no tag or no metadata to explain what that is, so you have to go digging for it. So that's the crawl phase of allocation. The commitment discounts are the rate optimization piece. So your savings plans, your reserved instances, buying the initial water level, and the documentation on the website goes into this in quite good detail. The water level is your stable level of usage. You'll have spikes, but the stable level of usage you want to cover with commitment tools. So that generally might be around 60%. And then the forecasting versus actual variance as an aim of 20% of the crawl phase. So you're kind of looking at your run rate historically, and you're estimating or forecasting where you're going to be, and you want to be within 20% at the crawl phase. The walk phase, you're pushing all those up, all those metrics up. So the allocate phase, you're looking to allocate 80% of your spend. So here you might have filled in some of those legacy tagging gaps. You might have also start establishing some governing around tagging when new instances are spun up, so no one can create an account or an instance without putting proper metadata in there to stop the bleeding. So all these things will help with your allocation. You might have a methodology for those shared costs established, which will boost up your allocation percentage. Then you look at your commitment discount. So you had that initial waterline. There's a bit more thought and strategic thinking to get that next 10%. You're looking at the trade-off between return versus flexibility. If your usage does change, you don't want to have waste. So there's a bit more science behind getting that next 10% of commitment coverage. And then thirdly, the one metric you want to come down is your forecast versus actual variance. So you want to be within 15%. So the more often you forecast and budget and feed that back with the business units, you get a better understanding of the business. You can get a closer idea of your forecast. So that from the iterative, repetitive process of FinOps, that will get better. And then the third phase is the run phase. This is where you're looking to be able to allocate 90% of your spend. And the fact that at run phase it's 90%, it points to how complex the cloud bill is. And there'll always be some elements that are, some business units are changing, some cost centers are moving around. So there'll always be an element of flux. But what you're trying to do is you're trying to mitigate that element of gray and allocate accurately for 90% of your bill. The commitment mix is looking to get to 80%. So this is where it really gets, you start using kind of maybe some more complex commitment tools such as convertible RIs, standard RI marketplace, for example, which are short-term commitments. So this is where you're looking for that additional 10% to reduce your on-demand cost, which is another level of maturity. And then thirdly, you're forecasting an actual, you're looking for, it's very specific in the website, about 12%. I don't know where that came from, but you're just looking to kind of get it down lower. You're never going to be perfect because a forecast is a forecast, whether it's finance or FinOps. It's never going to be perfect, but the more you do it, the more intelligent assumptions you can make and the closer you can get. So these maturity models, it's kind of used for allocate, commitment, and forecasting as an example. But this maturity model is applied to all the 23 capabilities within FinOps. And in the documentation on the website, you can click on each capability, see what the crawl, walk, run looks like in terms of, they've got metrics on them, which is really, really powerful. And that will help when you're trying to learn these and embed them for the exam. So, phases and maturity is where we are in FinOps. That's what we covered today. We looked at the inform, optimize, operate cycle, and we also went through a brief overview of domains and capabilities and how to crawl, walk, run feeds into that. Next week, I'm going to cover part one of the domains. So there were 6 of them, as we saw in the last slide. I'm going to cover the first 3 next week and take you through those. That's all I had for this week. Take care. Like and subscribe and all that sort of stuff. And I'll chat to you all soon. Take care. Bye-bye.